The chamber of the Galactic Council was a monument to ancient authority, a hollow cathedral of stars built on arrogance and a belief in permanence. Its walls glowed with the etchings of empires long gone, each line a boast of conquest, each crest a reminder of the thousands of species bound under its governance. For the countless races seated there, this was the center of the universe. For them, authority was not questioned, and order was never truly challenged. They had existed so long in the illusion of stability that the notion of disruption seemed laughable. That illusion would not last. The Galactic King entered with his usual ceremony, his retinue of armored guards fanning around him like shadows with blades. His crown was less an ornament and more a weaponized artifact, humming faintly with technologies older than most nations. Delegates bowed or lowered their heads, not out of respect, but out of conditioned fear. His empire was vast, and his cruelty legendary. No one forgot what had happened to the Vethra when they refused tribute. Their star burned cold now, their world scattered dust. His reign was not governance. It was domination. He thrived on reminding the galaxy of its place beneath him. Among the sea of alien representatives, one delegation stood apart. Humanity had only recently been invited to this hall, reluctantly granted recognition after years of proving themselves impossible to ignore. They were small in number, underestimated in influence, and regarded with the same condescension one might show to a dangerous but unrefined beast. The whispers that surrounded them were filled with contempt. Deathworlders, savage, violent, primitive. Some said they should never have been given a seat at all. Others claimed they were a mistake the galaxy would regret tolerating. None believed they would ever command respect. The human delegation came not only with diplomats but with family, as was their custom when traveling long distances in deep space. To the other species, it was an unforgivable breach of decorum. Among them was a child, small and unassuming, his presence a silent affront to those who believed the Council's sacred ground for power alone. Alien eyes glared at him, some muttering that it was reckless to bring such weakness into this arena. They did not understand why humans would dare. They assumed it was ignorance of culture, a naivety that would one day cost them. They were wrong, but they did not know it yet. The Galactic King noticed. He always noticed weakness, for it was where he fed his pride. His voice rolled through the chamber like thunder, mocking, ridiculing the humans for daring to place innocence before him. He sneered at their audacity, calling them pretenders, barbarians who dragged their spawn into halls meant for rulers. The child became a target in an instant. To the king, harming it was no crime but a demonstration. What better way to remind the galaxy of his supremacy than to crush the symbol of Earth's arrogance before all species? His advisors shifted uneasily. Even they understood the danger of drawing blood within the council walls. The laws of neutrality had held for centuries. But the king's arrogance knew no boundaries. His hand rose, or perhaps it was his will alone that summoned the strike. Energy flared, a whip of power lashing across the chamber in a single blinding arc. The child's body was hurled backward, crumpling against the floor with a sound that silenced all voices. Gasps spread across the room, followed by hushed murmurs. Even among the most vicious races present, none had dared such an act within these chambers. The violation was unthinkable. The child did not die instantly. His chest rose shallowly, breath ragged, life hanging by threads. The humans rushed to his side, their movements deliberate, controlled. The galaxy waited for tears, for wails of grief, for the pleading cries of a lesser race begging for mercy. They expected weakness, capitulation, fear. None came. The lead human stood tall, face unreadable, voice calm in its precision. He did not shout. He did not curse. He simply spoke. You have 5 minutes to reconsider what you've done. The words rang without weight at first. Many laughed. The sound was cruel, echoing across the chamber like jeers in a coliseum. To them, this was bravado, an empty declaration from primitives too proud to accept humiliation. The Galactic King himself laughed loudest, the booming sound shaking the vaulted ceiling. He declared humanity weak, foolish, unfit to sit among the stars. He dismissed the warning as nothing but the bark of a wounded animal, and he reveled in the silence of those too afraid to oppose him. The humans said nothing more. They lifted their wounded child, their movements slow and careful, and began to leave the chamber. No panic, no screams, no visible fear, only silence and precision in their steps that unsettled the more observant delegates. One alien whispered to another, recalling classified documents once buried by empires that had faced Earth's rise. Reports of wars that should have annihilated humans, but did not. Rumors of battles fought on death worlds where no other species could survive, and yet humans thrived. Old stories flickered in the minds of a few, whispers that humans did not bluff. As the doors closed behind the delegation, unease spread. The council chamber had grown colder. Delegates exchanged wary glances. Some recalling military assessments locked away by their governments, reported human adaptability, their strange biology, their refusal to yield even in hopeless battles. Words like relentless, unpredictable, and unforgiving returned to their thoughts. Still, the majority scoffed. What could a young race truly do in 5 minutes against an empire that had ruled for thousands of years? The Galactic King basked in his triumph, mistaking silence for submission. He paraded his cruelty with pride, daring anyone to challenge him. None did. None ever had. He believed humanity broken, humiliated before all species. He did not see the danger that had already begun to spread through the chamber like a slow poison. The careful expressions of those few who knew, the growing unease that silenced even laughter. For the first time in centuries, the chamber did not feel invulnerable. It felt like prey. The countdown had begun. 5 minutes. To the galaxy, it meant nothing. To humanity, it meant everything. The chamber did not recover its rhythm after the humans left. Debates that normally flowed endlessly faltered, words stumbling into silence. Delegates shifted in their seats, some watching the doors the humans had exited through, others watching the Galactic King. His laughter lingered like smoke after fire, but it no longer filled the room with the same authority. There was unease in the air, a weight pressing down on those perceptive enough to feel it. A few remembered that humans never warned without intent. They counted the minutes in their minds, though none dared to admit it aloud. 1 minute passed. The alarm struck first. They were not triggered by the king's command or by council security. They came unbidden, a sharp blare that rippled through every system. Across the chamber, advisors scrambled to consult their data feeds. Eyes widened, voices rose. Fleet commanders stationed across the system reported anomalies, ships dropping from faster-than-light transit at impossible proximity. At first, they believed it to be a malfunction. The defensive perimeter was too vast, the detection grids too advanced. No fleet could bypass them unnoticed, yet the signals grew in number. Unknown signatures, sleek and precise, materialized within the system. Their design was unmistakable. Humanity had arrived. The king barked commands, ordering his empire's fleets to mobilize. His voice shook less with confidence than with the effort of denial. He could not fathom how humans had reached the council system so quickly. The journey from Earth should have taken weeks under conventional transit. Even their fastest warships should have been detected long before entry. Yet here they were, forming ranks outside the very heart of galactic power, as though distance and defenses meant nothing. Delegates turned pale, their minds racing with the implications. The humans had not come armed for negotiation. They had come prepared. 2 minutes passed. The council chamber filled with hollow feeds. A human representative appeared, standing still with the same unshaken calm as before. No rage burned in his expression, no trembling grief, no erratic threats. His tone was the same as it had been when he issued the first warning. Cold, steady, certain. He did not scream vengeance. He did not demand blood. He only repeated what he had already said. 5 minutes. The council would see the consequence at its end. Delegates pleaded with him, their voices trembling. Some demanded an explanation. Others begged him to wait, to negotiate, to allow the council to mediate. None of their words changed his silence once the message was delivered. He spoke, then vanished in the feed, leaving the chamber colder than before. The Galactic King sneered, calling the humans coward hiding behind hollow theatrics. He dismissed their fleet as primitive toys, incapable of breaching the defenses of his empire. His arrogance filled the chamber again, but this time it was strained. For the first time, others did not echo his laughter. Whispers of unease replaced the sound. Some remembered human wars. Some remembered that they had no history of empty threats. Delegates whispered a phrase that traveled faster than light across the chamber. Deathworlders do not bluff. 3 minutes passed. The human fleet moved, not with chaotic aggression, but with surgical precision. Entire orbital defense grids went dark in an instant, their systems disabled without a shot fired. Ships armed with weapons designed to carve planets in half suddenly found their engines unresponsive, their power drained, their shields falling silent. Not one explosion shook the system. Not one casualty marked the strikes. Humanity did not destroy. They disabled. The message was clearer than destruction. The galaxy watched as the most secure system in the known universe was stripped bare in moments. Entire armadas rendered helpless, left floating powerless, and humans had not even opened fire. Panic erupted among the council. Delegates shouted, pleaded, accused. Some turned on the Galactic King, begging him to end this before it was too late. His empire's reputation had always protected him. No one dared challenge his authority because they feared the consequences of resistance. But now it was his arrogance that endangered them all. Still, he refused to bend. He called humanity reckless pretenders, threatened to wipe them out once he was finished with the council, promised annihilation upon Earth itself. His voice rang with pride, but the cracks beneath were evident. Even his own advisors looked uneasy, their hands twitching at their consoles, unable to re-establish contact with their fleets. For minutes passed. The human fleet positioned itself closer. For the first time, ships of other empires realized how small they looked in comparison. They had mocked Earth's navy as crude, unrefined, hastily built by a young species desperate to compete. Yet these vessels radiated a presence none had seen before. Every line of their hulls was purposeful. Every movement was calculated. The ships were deathworlders themselves, born from a species that survived in the harshest environments, designed not for intimidation, but for inevitability. They did not hover like predators waiting to pounce. They advanced with the inevitability of gravity. The chamber filled with silence. The king's laughter faltered. He raised his weaponized crown, attempting to project dominance once more. His threats grew louder, more erratic, as if volume could restore the fear he was losing. The chamber's eyes no longer turned to him as a ruler. They looked at him as prey cornered by forces he could not understand. Even his loyal allies began to distance themselves, refusing to share in the consequences of his arrogance. His empire might have stretched across dozens of systems, but the humans had proven it meant nothing when 5 minutes were enough to cripple it at its core. 5 minutes passed. The chamber doors burst open without sound, without force. They did not creak, did not thunder. They simply yielded. From the darkness of the hall, figures emerged. They were not soldiers clad in ornate armor, not shock troops wielding weapons larger than their bodies. They were human operatives, clad in suits that shimmered faintly with technologies the council had no name for. They moved with impossible swiftness, silent as death itself. No alarms were triggered, no defenses engaged. They had bypassed every system as though walls and weapons did not exist. Before the Galactic King could even raise his hand, it was over. In less than a breath, the operatives reached him. The chamber filled with gasps, cries, the shuffling of terrified delegates rising from their seats. The king roared defiance, his weaponized crown flaring with light, but was snuffed out instantly. A single motion ended him. His body crumpled, his head severed in a gesture as precise as the disabling of fleets. The silence that followed was absolute. The king's head was hung high on the chamber wall, a grisly symbol of finality, a reminder written in blood where words had failed. The chamber remained frozen after the humans departed. Delegates sat in silence, eyes locked on the grisly sight above them. The severed head of the Galactic King hung high on the wall, its crown dimmed, its gaze lifeless, the once unquestionable symbol of power reduced to an object of dread. It was not only a death, but the end of an illusion. The figure they had feared for centuries had fallen in less than 5 minutes, and the blow had not come from rival empires or ancient enemies. It had come from a race dismissed as primitive, weak, and unworthy of the council's halls. That dismissal no longer existed. No one moved to take the head down. No one dared approach it. The silence that followed was not reverence, but terror. The Galactic Council, once the arena of endless debates, petty rivalries, and posturing, felt like a tomb. Each delegate knew that what they had witnessed was not an assassination, but a demonstration. Humanity had not come for power. They had not come to seize thrones or demand tribute. They had come to send a message that resonated louder than any weapon. One act had severed not only the king's head, but also the entire foundation of galactic arrogance. The first whispers broke the silence. Some whispered questions about retaliation, but those words faltered as soon as they were spoken. Retaliate against whom? The empire that had ruled for centuries was shattered by a gesture, its fleets disabled, its defenses erased, its ruler killed before all eyes. Others asked if humanity would strike again, if Earth's fleets waited beyond the system to burn more empires to ash. No answers came. There was only dread. The humans returned only once more. A single representative appeared, not physically but as a projection shimmering in the center of the chamber. His expression carried the same cold steadiness as before, untouched by emotion. He looked at no individual but at the chamber as a whole, his words measured and final. Humanity did not declare conquest. Humanity did not ask for apologies, reparations, or subjugation. He spoke only one statement. Humanity does not start wars, but we will end them. Harm a child of Earth again, and no king, no empire, no council will remain. The words carried more weight than any decree in the history of council. They did not roar. They did not echo artificially. They did not need to. The silence that followed was heavier than any battlefield. When the projection vanished, the delegates sat paralyzed, not daring to breathe too loudly. The humans had no need to linger. They had already claimed their place without claiming territory. They had drawn no borders, yet imposed a rule stronger than law. The council would never forget the ultimatum. The death of the king shattered the balance of power overnight. His empire, once bound by fear and enforced loyalty, began to fracture instantly. Warlords who had once bowed to him turned against each other, scrambling for pieces of authority, none daring to turn their gaze toward humanity. The council watched this collapse with quiet horror, realizing that the vacuum left behind would destabilize regions for centuries. Yet no one blamed the humans. No one even thought to challenge their action. Every delegate who had been present remembered the moment the fleets died without firing a shot, the moment the operatives walked past the fences as if they did not exist, the moment inevitability replaced debate. Across the galaxy, the story spread faster than fleets could travel. Entire civilizations whispered the tale, each recounting with variations, but none losing the core truth. 5 minutes. That was all it took for Earth to undo an empire. 5 minutes became a phrase etched into the collective mind of the galaxy. To speak of 5 minutes was to invoke terror, to remind others that humans would not argue, bargain, or threaten endlessly. They gave warning once, and then they acted. The myth grew larger than the reality, but the reality was already enough to terrify even the most violent of predators. Some species tried to rationalize. They claimed it was advanced technology stolen from older empires. They claimed it was manipulation, trickery, smoke, and mirrors. But the ones who had been present knew better. The ships, the operatives, the precision. It was not the tools alone that terrified them. It was the resolve behind them. The humans had not hesitated. They had not second-guessed. They had not sought validation from the council. They had decided, acted, and completed their retribution with the inevitability of natural law. That certainty was what broke the galaxy's pride. No one would ever again call humans primitive. No one would call them fragile. Delegates who once sneered at their presence now avoided their gaze, speaking of them in hushed tones, careful never to let their words sound like insult. Ambassadors from other worlds began to visit Earth under the guise of diplomacy, but in truth, they came out of fear. They offered treaties, alliances, trade agreements, all in desperate attempts to secure goodwill. Humanity did not demand these things. Humanity did not beg for recognition. It was given freely out of survival. The galaxy had learned that respect was cheaper than defiance. On Earth, the child survived. His name became legend. though humanity itself never told a story with embellishment. To them, it was not about glory or pride. It was about a simple principle, one carved into their history long before they reached the stars. They had endured wars, invasions, genocide, and atrocities on their homeworld, yet they had always risen again. One truth had been written into their very nature. There was no greater sin in their eyes than harming their children. The galaxy learned that lesson in the most brutal way possible. The humans did not declare vengeance for resources or territory. They declared it for blood, for family, for the smallest of their own. Generations later, alien historians would argue about the moment the galaxy changed. Some would claim it was the rise of hyperlane travel, others the formation of the first great empires. But those who lived through it knew better. The true shift came in those 5 minutes. Before them, the galaxy believed in eternal hierarchies, in rulers untouchable, in empires beyond challenge. After them, the galaxy understood that no empire was untouchable, no throne immune, no ruler safe when humanity drew a line. The council never removed the king's head from the chamber. It remained where the humans had placed it, suspended as a reminder. Delegates sat beneath it in silent session after session, their voices quieter, their debates shorter. Every decision they made carried the unspoken weight of that moment. When arguments grew heated, when tempers flared, someone would glance upward and silence would return. The head became more than a corpse. It became law. It became the anchor of a new order.